Hi, this is Catherine, and welcome back to Taking Tea with Catherine. I'm drinking Harney and Sons Victorian London Fog, I think it's called. It's definitely Victorian. Anyway, not because I'm really talking about anything particularly Victorian today, although I was watching reruns of the Victoria program with Jenna Coleman because I was just in that kind of mood. But because sometimes thinking of the past, even for someone like me who has a good memory and keeps journals and lists and junk, even so, it can be a bit of a fog. So I thought that would be kind of fitting. And because I took the day off from work today, I had some extra time and didn't want to let it go to waste, which is good because the weather was terrible out today. Great day to stay indoors and get some things done, like trying to assemble a bookcase and not having fun with it, but I did it. Anyway, so I thought I'd take this opportunity not only to have some caffeinated tea on this program for once or twice, but also to do a book tag that I've seen around BookTube very recently. And usually if a couple of people that I quite like following and subscribing to do a tag, I say, oh, I think it's time for me to go for it. Even if I wasn't tagged, because, I'll just take all the tags and run with them. So anyway, so this is, the 10-year challenge book tag. And this was conceived or invented, created. That's the word. The sources are fun. By Rincey at Rincey Reads. Did I pronounce your name right? Please tell me I pronounced it right. Because I'm feeling like I'm not pronouncing names lately. But I'll link the name down below, because that I will definitely get right. And I like this. She said something along the lines of how people were doing that online social networking tag of people taking pictures of themselves from 2009 and then a picture of themselves in 2019 and, look at the difference. And I almost thought about doing that myself, but then so this year I had to renew my passport. So yeah, every 10 years. And the last picture I had was quite nice. I was worried about a little hair fly away, but otherwise I looked nice. This year I took it right after I was just getting over a cold, I think. I don't know, it was a bad winter. It was winter time, and I chose a photographer in the post office, which photographer is not the word. She got a very bad picture of me. And I know I'm not the most photogenic person, but I really think that it's a bad picture. I look like Brian Jones from the Rolling Stones, like when he was at his worst drug times. Yes, I know he died at 27, but I look like the old version of it. Anyway, so I'm going to start with this challenge. Let's try to remember things of the past. And I went back to, like I said before, I'm on Goodreads, but I've been on Library Thing longer. So I was doing challenges back then, starting, I think, 2008, where it was like 8 books to 8 categories. And that was pretty doable. And then 2009 was 9 books of 9 categories. I might have started in 2007. I'm not sure. I told you, fog. But 9 times 9 probably wasn't something I was going to make, but I thought it's fun anyway. And I did it. Oh no, I'm saying fun again. And I did it, and I had some really good categories. Like I read a whole bunch of books about Italy and Rome, like ancient Rome as well. I read a lot of classics. I read 2 Shakespeare's. 2. And I read a whole bunch of books. Yeah, I'll get into it. So I was quite proud of my reading back then. That was around the time, about a year or so after I started really getting seriously back into reading classics. And I've never stopped since then, although, some years have been better than others. But anyway, I digress. Let's talk about these questions. The first one was, what was your favorite book in 2009? And, it's hard to look back and say, oh, I remember thinking this is my favorite book because I didn't nominate one. But I looked at the list of the books that I had read, and I thought, what do I think was my favorite? And obviously there was a reread, and so, probably this one. So if I was just going to pick any book, I can't go wrong with saying this was my favorite. But there's a book that I saw on the list that I pretty much remember and want to reread just because it was just an interesting idea. And it was Two Guys Read Jane Austen by these gentlemen, Steve Chandler and Terrence N. Hill. So it's kind of they did other things too. They read two guys read Moby Dick and 2 guys read the obituaries. The concept is mostly that these 2 guys read Jane Austen's works and communicate to each other by letters, emails, whatever it was, probably emails, about their thoughts. And I just love that because, I mean, I don't get me wrong, I like anybody's thoughts on Jane Austen, but sometimes I like just some dudes reading Jane Austen. I like different I like different perspectives, and that's a different perspective to me anyway, because if I'm honest, a lot of my acquaintances have not read Jane Austen, and those who have are usually women. And some guys who were dragged into maybe watching the programs, probably not reading the books. So, and I know there's plenty of guys who do, but not in my sphere. So, I read this book, and I was going through it, and I remember mentioning recently that I don't usually write in books, but I did in pencil here, because apparently in this paragraph, said, I don't remember what this is a reference to, but he says, I have clients that I assign books to, but they, in quotes, don't have time to read, even though the book, if carefully read, would solve everything. And that part, don't have time to read, I wrote, I hate when people say that. So I really haven't changed. That just like boils my brain when that happens. So I'm kind of glad I pointed that out to my future self. Anyway, so I think I want to reread this. Maybe during Jane Austen July next year. Maybe? Okay. So that was a lot of time in one question. Number 2. What is your favorite book of 2019? And I don't have a favorite. I have favorites, and I intend to, before this year is over or early in 2020, to do a sort of wrap-up. I already have a list, and it may change if I read something before December is over, or I've listed 5 favorites and 5 in both fiction and nonfiction. So that's 10 books. So I don't know if I can really pick a favorite, but at least I'll have that. Sometimes it's better to step back before I can really think, you know? What was my least favorite book in 2009? And I don't remember specifically saying this is my least favorite book, but this book called High Tea by Sandra Harper, I don't know if I bought it for myself or if it was like an advanced reader copy, because I don't have it anymore in my collection. It was, a chick lit about someone running a tea room, and I thought that could be fun. Oh, I said fun again. Take a shot, people. I thought it could be a good book and totally up my alley. But it was not. It was too sexy times. You know what I mean? Too much. Like, not even, okay. I know people, it's romantic. Okay, fine. But it was just too much. And I just didn't. I wasn't for it. So I don't even know if I finished. I must have finished it because I wrote it down as finished. So, but. And I found other people's reviews of it too, and they said the same thing, so I'm not alone. Okay, least favorite of 2019. And I wrote Reckless Daughter by David Yaffe, and that was a biography of Joni Mitchell. I read another book that was a biography of Joni Mitchell, Carly Simon, and Carole King, and why it's escaping me, I saw it in Book Off, like for really cheap, and didn't buy it, and I haven't seen it recently, and I should have. I read it not 10 years ago, but roundabouts then. And it was so much better. Why can't I remember what it was called? But, so I knew that I liked Joni Mitchell's music. I'm not the biggest fan, but I like her music, and I liked what I read of her life then. But, oh my goodness, I did not, this book, it wasn't horrific, but it was really long, and it felt negative, and I don't even know if the biographer wanted it to feel negative, but it was literally one of those ones where I say, oh, I have to get through this, and I trudge through it. I don't even know why. So, number 5, what is a book published in 2009 that you still want to read? I don't know, because I looked through a bunch of books that were published in 2009, and I couldn't find any that I hadn't read that I wanted to read. I would have said if I hadn't read it, Wolf Hall, because that was published in 2009, and it was wonderful, but I want to reread it. I want to read the newest installment coming out in March. So, okay, number 6, what is a book published in 2019 you want to get to before 2020? Well, unless I somehow miraculously suddenly read this book, I have tons of other books I'm reading and enjoying, but I just picked up a lot of books that are slow readers. I'm still reading Dombey and Son, loving it. Reading Little Women, loving it. Well, liking it quite a lot. And they're good, but they seem for me to be slow reads. I don't know why. But If I could fit this in, I would. I probably won't though. And it's Lori Gottlieb's Maybe You Should Talk to Someone. I've been trying to get to this, and everyone who reads it says it's great. And it seems like it's a book for me, but I just haven't yet. But you never know. Maybe I will just sit down and read it. Okay, number 7. What is a genre that you used to read a lot of that you don't read as much of anymore? Well, apparently, according to 2009, I read a bit of fantasy. And that's not really my thing. I'm not saying a little fantasy. That Pages & Co. book was kind of fantasy. But it's just not my thing anymore. And also, something else that's not my thing, it's still my thing, but I'm just not reading as much of, is nonfiction around food and drink. I've been trying to read more tea books again. And I read a lot that year. And a lot of books about food. I read this book about curry that I think my sister has right now. So that was 2009. Beautiful yellow book. And I loved it. But I don't see myself reading as much about food recently. But not continually none. That's not even an expression. Not continually none. Okay, let's have another cup of tea. I need energy. Because apparently I can't string words together. That's a goal for next year, right? Number 8. What is a new genre you've discovered since 2009? And I don't think I have discovered any new. I was thinking about anything and I'm like, no, I'm pretty much, you guys have to understand too that when I was reading books in 2009, Freddie, my cat's going crazy. I moved some furniture around. When I was reading books in 2009, before Freddie, when my cat Zenobia was still here, and she still is, and Moofer, I was in my early 30s. Yes, please don't do the math. And so I was already fully formed. A lot of people I've been noticing who are doing the challenge were either in their early 20s when they started doing it or younger. So, or when in 2009, I should say. So yeah, I'm an old fogey. Not ancient, but compared to some. So my reading habits have not changed that much since then. The only thing I could say is that, I'm a little more in, it's not even a new genre, but it's just books that have been recommended to me on Instagram and BookTube. YouTube existed back then, and did Instagram exist in 2009? I don't think so. I know Facebook did, but Twitter. But yeah, sort of like Instagrammable, bookstagrammable books, maybe? Is that even a genre? Well, it can be if you're picking out books to read based on how lovely they'll be on the Instagrams. I don't really do that, but I will pick a lovely book and put it in a picture next to some tea or my cats on my Instagram, which I should link down below. Because it's not called Taking Tea with Catherine, it's called Pensive Cat, so if you were looking for it just randomly, you may not find it. Okay, number 9. What is a reading or book habit you are hoping to leave behind in this decade? Oh, the one I was hoping to leave behind in the previous decade. But not the one before that, because before that I was pretty good. And that is buying more books than I read. I told you about this issue that I have where I buy a ton of books. This year I bought so many more books than I have in years. So many books, and I read a lot of books every year. Even my low reading years, I read at least 40. That's my lowest amount. But a lot of them are still library books, and I'm surrounded by books, so I had to put together a cheap bookshelf as recently as today. But I'm still reading so many more library books. Statistically, I looked and I was like, oh my goodness, what is wrong with me? So that's a really bad habit. Number 10, what is a new reading goal or habit you want to read in the upcoming decade? Reading the books I own. So that's basically the same thing, but it's kind of like, it's like saying I want to, get off meat and get more into plant-based products. Well, you're definitely eating less meat and you're definitely eating more plant products as a result. So they kind of go hand in hand for me. Anyway, so yeah, I enjoyed my little memory lane. I hate to say nostalgic, because even though sometimes I'll look at things that happened 10 years ago or 20 years ago and say, oh, I miss this or that, or this person nearby who used to live near me or something, and they've moved since then, and that's sad. But much as I can be like that about the past, I also kind of like seeing changes, and also, just seeing how many books I've read since 2009 is pretty amazing and fun. And it makes me look forward to all the books I can read in 2020 And if somehow I'm booktubing in 2029 and we do this tag again, I would be very interested to see what I'd be saying or what I wouldn't be saying. So I hope you've enjoyed. I'm not going to tag anybody because I wasn't tagged, and so I'm being, whatever. But if you guys haven't been tagged, then consider yourself tagged by default. And I think it was a fun tag. So this has been Catherine from, I said fun again, from the very Addicted to Fun, Taking Tea with Catherine. Hope you have a lovely, lovely day.